Today I'm going to show you a great sounding oud ornament. I call it the one finger ornament. I don't know if there's another name for it. I call it that because you play it with one finger. It's used all over the place in oud music, and to me it has a really great flavor of tarab to it, and so it's a great way to add some depth and character to playing. So let's get to it. Alright, so what is it? It's basically a half step played with one finger. In this case I'm playing A, B flat A, all with the first finger, but I could do it with the second finger. Kind of depends on what the rest of the phrase is, whether I want to use the first finger or the second finger. Should practice it probably both ways. This is a really common phrase. Here I played it in Bayati, but I'm playing on the second jins, the Nahawand jins. So that would be the normal G, A, B flat, A, G. So that's with one finger. Okay, so going from there, any maqam that uses Nahawand as a jins, you can use this there. So you'll hear it in Bayati, like the example that I just played, but you'll also hear it in Kurd, you'll hear it in Rast from the fifth, you'll hear it possibly in Nahawand, obviously, anywhere where you would hear that half step from Nahawand. So in that case, that could be Bayati or it could be Kurd because I haven't played the second degree. Or we could play Rast. So it has a lot of applications there. That I think of as kind of the number one use. You've probably heard Farid do this, al-Sounbati, el-Qasabgi, Michel. It's all over the place. Whenever you hear Bayati, oud players love to do this ornament. Okay, so number two, there's a second case. This is Hijaz. In Hijaz, it's played between 3 and 4, the third and fourth notes. The first case I think I heard it, that I noticed, was Shaheen playing the intro to Al-Qasabgi, where he plays it on A. So this is really nice there. You can play it with the first finger as you, if you have the tonic of Hijaz is on a fingered note, basically. So if you're playing Hijaz on A, you can also play Hijaz on C. There you can play it with the second finger. Or with the first finger. Also, when you're playing Hijaz from an open string, this I think I noticed Michel plays it in a couple of taqsims, where here we have Hijaz from G. So this can be played with the third or fourth finger depending on how you like to finger Hijaz. I like to do it both ways. It depends again on the context of the phrase, but anywhere you have it Hijaz starting on open string, you could do the same thing. So on D, or on C. same maqam. So that's Hijaz. There's obviously a few different ways you can play that there. And I'm going to get into a little bit of practice techniques in the second half of the video. Okay, so the third one here is Jaharka. And Jaharka is a little bit of a tricky jins, and people often have a little bit of trouble with it. I know I did, and maybe still do. But people sometimes think that it's Rast, or they think that it's ajam. And this makes sense because the third degree is somewhere in between the third degree of Rast and ajam. So in Rast we have the 3/4 tone third, and then on ajam we have the regular major third. But what everybody agrees on, and different musicians will disagree about exactly where the third of Jaharka is, and even the same musician, one performance they might play at one place, and another performance maybe they play at another place. Maybe it depends. Maybe if the modulation is coming from Rast, it's in one place. If the modulation is coming from Bayati, it's in another place. That's really beyond the scope of anything that I'm going to talk about, and honestly I don't feel expert enough to make a definitive pronunciation on anything like that. I would say use your ears, listen to as much as you can. Listen to Saba Fakhri, listen to a wasla in Rast. I guarantee you he goes to Jiharkah multiple times, at least once, probably multiple times in a wasla. Most longer Rast takasim, you'll hear the oud player go to Jaharkah in the upper octave at some point. So do some listening and really try to notice the difference between different renditions of Jaharkah. The one thing that everybody agrees on is that the fourth degree is lower. So if you listen to Rast, if you listen to ajam, the fourth degree is a pure fourth and sounds very clearly fourth. So right, that's very clear, the fourth, the F. And then if you play ajam, also very clearly an F. If you listen to Jaharkah, that note is going to be a little lower. It's not really going to be all the way up to where you'd expect the F to be. It sounds something like this. I'm going to try to do it. Might not be perfect. It's not here. This is a great spot to use this one finger ornament. In fact, I got this idea. I had heard a lot of people do it, play it with the fingered F like I just did, but then I was listening to Michel play a takasim in Rast, and he did it with one finger, and I was like, well, that's really cool. Why haven't I been doing that all along? So. So these are three really important ways to use this ornament. They're almost essential to really getting the flavor of these maqams. So I'd strongly suggest practicing these, and I'm going to show you a few ways that you can do that, maybe to break it down a little bit simpler for practicing it in the beginning. Okay, so you might have noticed there's a couple of rhythms here that are common ways to express this ornament. The first one that I'd suggest actually being the second one that you work on, but it's the most common, is to hear the dotted rhythm. So it's like a dotted eighth and a 16th, and so something like this. that's a really nice way to play it. But I would say at first, try to play it the other way, which is to play them evenly. So as if they're 8th notes or 16th notes. The reason for this is a lot of ornaments, if you don't practice them evenly, they tend to sound a little awkward because you're not really in control of how it sounds. So you can practice it like this. If you can get that even like that, it will really help you make your ornaments sound smooth. And then you can practice. And there's a little bonus trick, which is you can, on the second note, second A here, you can slide a little bit back towards the B flat like this. Start doing that, it almost sounds like this is all just one big vibrato, which is kind of part of the effect, but it's not really just one big vibrato because it is only the note above, and you really are pretty clearly playing these notes even if they're kind of all smeared together with a portamento. So. Practice just like that. Practice it slow. Try to be relaxed. You might have a little trouble moving your finger smoothly. Usually it's because you're pushing down too hard on the strings. And I'm going to do another lesson coming up where I'll talk a little bit about working on that. But just try to lighten up your touch, and it should be easier to move your finger smoothly like this. Because you don't want to really... You don't want that. You don't want where your finger is really in contact fully with the string the whole time and it sounds like wing, wing, wing. It has to be very light. Okay, I hope that was helpful. Let me know in the comments below if you liked it, what you might like to see next. Don't forget to hit subscribe if you haven't already to get more stuff. And I'll see you next time.